Good evening. Let's call the meeting to order for the March 23rd regular City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
I will be conducting the roll call verbally. Councilmember Brenner. Here. Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Dixon via Zoom.
Here.
Councilmember Blum.
Here.
Councilmember Duffield has an excused absence. Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon. Here. Mayor Avery.
Here. All right. Mr. Harp, is there a closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor Avery. There is no closed session report this evening.
All right. And now's time for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember O'Neill will provide the invocation, and Councilmember Muldoon will lead us in the pledge.
Lord, we thank you for this gathering. We ask that you provide us wisdom and guidance as we make decisions tonight. We ask that you watch over our frontline workers, especially those in our hospitals, as they continue to push back against the ravages that COVID has left behind. We thank you for the medical and scientific expertise that has led to the medical breakthroughs that we were able to see, especially today at Oasis Senior Center as we watch seniors vaccinated against this disease. We thank you for seeing the hospitalization numbers dropping, the ICU numbers dropping, the case counts dropping, and we ask that you watch over those people who are sick. We ask that you get them better. We ask that you watch over those people who are healthy, and we please ask that you keep them that way. And these things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Please face the flag. Repeat after me. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has the discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
All right. Now we're on to council announcements and oral reports from council members on committee activities. Councilmember Brenner, do you have announcements?
I do. After living in Newport for about 60 years, I've always loved our city, but the last 2 years with the problems that we faced with homelessness and COVID has made me come as close to not liking our city as possible. And I'm starting to see a resurgence of hope that is so exciting to me. And today was one of those days where we know we still have problems, we know we still have ways to go, but it started to seem like Newport again. And our whole kindness message for the month of April fits right into this. So today, at the Oasis Senior Center, we had a day where we were able to inoculate about 300 of our seniors who've been having difficulty getting the vaccine. And we partnered with Hoag Hospital to do this, and Mayor O'Neill was there doing his bit to help, and it was really uplifting. People were so excited to be there, and you could tell they just felt so positive about Oasis and about our city, and it really uplifted me to make me feel like, yeah, this is the Newport that I remember. And then the other thing that happened today was that Noah and Will and Brad and I went to the ribbon cutting for the new homeless shelter in Costa Mesa. And it was really, first of all, Mayor Avery did a great job speaking on behalf of Newport Beach. And they expressed such appreciation for us as a partner to them. We were all, I think, just really impressed and amazed. And the thing that I really wanted to say about this was that we're sort of thought of as a Republican city, and Costa Mesa is sort of thought of as a Democrat city, and yet we came together to benefit each other and solve a problem. And I was so impressed. I was actually teary walking around here because it's like this is how government is supposed to work. And everybody kind of put their egos aside and just really did what was best for our communities. And it was really inspirational. And so these are a few pictures from the new homeless shelter. We understand mid-April is when they're supposed to actually start operations. They had wonderful things to say about our city staff, about Grace, and I know she negotiated with them, and everybody seemed to come out the other side feeling really positive about it. So it was one of my most uplifting days since I was elected to city council. So was really excited about that.
Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you. So I was able to complete my last meeting with my mentee, and we actually did that over at the fire station over at the Fashion Island Fire Station. We met outside with some tables with some firefighters, and my mentee over at Newport Harbor High School was able to sit, and I brought lunch for all the firefighters, but I said the price of this is that you're going to have to give one piece of advice to my mentee. His name's Drew, and it was great. I enjoyed actually just being able to sit there and listen to some really great people pour into a 16-year-old. So to those firefighters, I just want to say thank you. I also attended the TCA board meeting, attended the Housing Element Advisory Update Committee. For all of you who are paying attention, I really hope that you will take a look at our Housing Element draft. It's particularly important for the next 7 years of our city and perhaps even beyond. We also have released the draft circulation element, and so I encourage everyone to pay attention to that too. We have workshops. We also have upcoming meetings with the Housing Element Update Committee and also the Planning Commission before it comes to City Council in May, I think the last meeting in April. So I really encourage people to be paying attention and provide your input. Joy and Noah and I were able to attend the Corona Del Mar Residents Association meeting. I always enjoy those. And last but not least, I love that youth sports are back, that I'm able to go to my kids' soccer and baseball games again. I can't even begin to express my appreciation to our Recreation and Senior Services Department for everything that they have been doing to get youth sports back in our city. And then to the Newport Mesa Unified School District Board, who have been pushing so hard to make sure that elementary schools are coming back in full-time, starting, I believe, in April 21st or somewhere in that range. And then they're still working on the secondary schools as well. So this is hard. Nothing's easy right now, but just wanted to say especially to our Recreation, Senior Services, and our Newport Mesa Unified School District, thank you as a parent.
Councilmember Dixon?
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things. I had a very productive Zoom town hall last Monday, I guess it was, and all the common questions that we're all continuing to receive lots of letters about short-term lodging, short-term rentals, boardwalks, public safety, and a lot of good projects in my district by Public Works. So it was a lively meeting. I like to keep them to 90 minutes, but there are always a lot of questions, so we went a little bit over, but I'm grateful to staff to help support our town halls. Are about 80 residents engaged in 90 minutes, so it was really always worthwhile. After the town hall, I had an aviation committee meeting and with Councilmember Blum, and we're getting launched, as I mentioned, the last meeting report on our ad hoc committee's special focus on noise and departure issues and community relations and government relations issues. So everyone has assignments on the committee and reporting to the full committee on their meetings that they're having in ad hoc fashion. And a lot of, this will be a highly productive year and look forward to as the year unfolds. So that's all for my report today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blum?
Thank you. We've touched upon a lot of what I've been doing this week, and it's been amazing with both the aviation committee meeting. Diane really took a great hand on that, separating out those different departments and kind of seeing people dive in and really be excited about kind of their independent tasks. So it's nice to see the evolution of that committee. And we did have a great time at the homeless shelter today, and that's probably the first time in my life I've ever said that. But it was amazing to see how many people it took to make it happen. And I think that was really what blew me away. The facility is phenomenal, but really just the group of so many community advocates, so many people from the city, from the county, from so many different levels to try to help out. And wow. So I think we're all really looking forward to that. I think it helps answer a lot of questions for the residents as well. And I really enjoyed that. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem. Right. Oh, you want to go ahead?
Sorry, I did forget. Could we go back a slide? Thank you. I apologize. I forgot about this slide. So I want to make sure I note that Senior Cuisine Delivered is a program created in response to COVID-19. AgeWell Services partnered with 10 Southern Orange County restaurant and caterers to provide affordable quality meals delivered safely to your door. Each meal is $9.99. Meal plans can be arranged for 2, 4, or 6 days a week. You must be 50 years of age or older, or a dependent or caretaker of someone 50 and older, and live in the service area. For more information, please call, and I'll say it twice, 949-382-6099 or 949-382-6099. You can also sign up at myagewell.org. Thank you.
Thank you. And I attended a Orange County Sanitation District Operations Committee meeting and Finance Committee meeting, as well as a meeting with the Homeless Ad Hoc Committee. And then best of all was this morning, as several other council members have mentioned, that photo there, it sort of shows it all. It was really something to see it all come together. And obviously, as I said there, our thanks to Costa Mesa for including us, making us a part of their shelter. And the big message was it's really a regional issue, and it takes cities coming together, and it takes the NGOs coming together, houses of faith, and community members, and people who give a lot of their time and people who have a lot of expertise in this that are helping us along the way. And I'll just end it by saying I really felt like we have turned a corner on this with the opening of the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter, and also another shelter in Mid-County that will also play a big part of this as well. So we're well on our way to getting people who are having a really tough time off the streets and getting the help they need. And down the line, we'll have to do a lot more. It's by no means over. This is just sort of the start, the beginning of the beginning, I'll say. So thank you. Right. Madam Clerk.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion, items 1 through 17. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion, unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and/or removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you. Councilmember Brenner, do you have any items to pull from the consent calendar or conflicts to announce related to items number 1 through 17 of that calendar?
No, none.
All right, thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
I have none.
Councilmember Dixon.
I have none, but I'd like to register a no vote on item number 3, please.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon.
I'd like to enter a no vote on item 4.
Thank you. And sorry, Councilmember Blom.
I'd like to pull item number 8, and I have a conflict due to business interests on item 6.
All right. Okay. And I will be a no vote on item 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have a motion if you're ready.
Yep.
Thank you. Move the balance of the consent calendar, items 1 through 17, with amendments to the minutes added. A no vote on item 3 lodged by Councilwoman Dixon and Mayor Avery. A no vote on item 4 lodged by myself. Recusal on item 6 by Councilmember Blom due to real property interests. And item 8 pulled by Councilman Blom.
All right. Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. So now we'll go out to item number 8. Well, before we do that, public comment on the consent calendar. Anything on the phones? Okay. We'll go ahead with the phones first. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Isabel Gomez. I'm calling about item 18, about the proclamation of the recycling fee increase. I'm a junior at Seychelles School and on the board of a club called Recycleholics, and our goal is to collect as many recyclables in Newport as we can, exchange them for money, and donate that money to environmental organizations. Over the past year, I've been collecting recycling bags that we have set up from businesses around town. And what I've noticed is that every single bag of quote unquote recycling has about 25 to 50% trash. I pull out like tea bags, wet napkins, and a lot of other stuff. You guys would be like amazed at the stuff I sift through. Our club proposes that we take advantage of the city's change in recycling, which is being discussed tonight, and undertake a citywide education campaign on recycling. Mayor Will O'Neill has kindly offered to post a series of educational facts through social media, and our group would love to work with any other council member as well. And most importantly, we propose that we work with CR&R, the town's recycling vendor, to determine the biggest challenges they face in the process of recycling and create a one-page flyer to give every resident of Newport Beach in the next citywide mailing. And we would ask that you would consider designating us to work with CR&R on the flyer. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments from the community room? All right. Nothing here, seeing none. No additional council comments? Okay, let's vote.
Prior to that, I just want to ask if the amendments to item 1 are the minutes included in the motion? Prior to conducting the roll call vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for item 3, ordinance number 2021-6, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach adopting zoning code amendment number CA 2020-005 to amend section 20.24.2020 industrial zoning land uses and permit requirements, 20.40.40 off-street parking spaces required, 20.48.090 eating and drinking establishments, and 20.70.020 definitions of specialized terms and phrases of Title 20 Planning and Zoning of the Newport Beach Municipal Code and other related provisions to allow for wine tasting rooms within the industrial zoning district. For item 4, ordinance number 2021-7, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Exhibit A to Newport Beach Municipal Code Section 3.36.030 related to cost recovery, and ordinance number 2021-8, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach enacting Newport Beach Municipal Code Section 12.44.111 to permit the establishment of overstay charges for parking spaces designated for use of public electric vehicle charging stations. For item 5, ordinance number 2021-9, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Chapter 5.49, burglary, robbery, fire alarm systems of the Newport Beach Municipal Code. Now for the vote. Councilmember Brenner,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Blum,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon, Mayor Avery.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right. Do we need a staff report on item 8?
No,
No,
thank
you
you.
don't? All right, please. So we go forward with item 8.
Let's move forward on item 8. I don't need a staff report.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
So would there be any discussion or questions on that item?
Yes.
No,
So-
we're on that item now.
Oh, okay. Oh, my apologies. So, yes, I'll have the staff report from you, Grace.
I will bring Simone Jurgis, Community Development Director, to just briefly talk to this item.
Thank you, council members. This item is really a continuation of the short-term lodging subcommittee. Councilmember Blum has replaced Councilmember Herdman, so there's a vacancy on the short-term lodging committee. The short-term lodging committee subcommittee wants to continue working on making recommendations to the municipal code. They have asked that Councilmember Duffield be included and would like to continue with the subcommittee studying the municipal code, see if there's any further changes or recommendations to be made, specifically in the coastal zone, until June of next year, so June 2022. And that's pretty much the extent of it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any further comments on item 8? Ms. Brenner?
Yes, I'd just like to give a little additional information. I would love to say that our work is complete and that we could sunset this committee and take one more meeting off of all of our plates. But unfortunately, we've got some really serious problems, and we're finding that some of our ordinances are, we're trying to figure out how they actually are being enforced and whether it's taking care of the problems. We've got really good operators in town that are doing great work and are welcoming people to our community, but we've also got a few operators that are making life miserable for the people around them. And these people are not contributing to our economic base. They're not people who are going out and eating at our restaurants and really adding to the tax base. They're people that are bringing in everything with them and are staying at the properties 24/7 and keeping the neighbors awake. And so we're just trying to figure out how to encourage, recognize, and support the good operators, but at the same time try to find ways to make sure that we are not destroying the quality of life for the neighbors who live around the bad operators.
Mr. Blum?
Thank you. So the reason I wanted to talk about this a little bit is that sometimes the committees, when they're composed of just council members, we don't necessarily get the view of all the operators. And that's what I really want to bring into this, is community involvement, both from the people who are being disturbed by it so that they can talk about what their issues are, and from the people who are operating them so that they can pose solutions, rather than it being something dictated from up here where we're looking for a solution to a problem without the people who are involved in the issues. So I would like to see this committee turn into either something more or have the community dialogue to start working with them in a more productive way. Because it seems to have just been a little tense over the last year that this committee has been up, and I know there's tension out there in the streets as well, and I understand that, but sometimes we don't alleviate tension with more tension. Maybe we have to look at it from a different mindset than created it, and possibly go for another solution rather than just kind of hammering in the same thing we've been doing for a year. Because if we can't come to a good solution in a year, maybe we should try some other solutions first before just reiterating it again. Thank you.
O'Neill.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what's left for this ad hoc to do other than look at the enforcement, because my understanding is our next meeting, we're going to be talking about Newport Island, again, on an owner-operated side of things. I don't think we've ever had an ad hoc focused on enforcement. Enforcement's always been something that is not to be directed by council members. And so my understanding when we would form the ad hoc originally, the idea was to make sure that the good operators were heard and not harmed, and the bad operators were punished. And if we didn't have codes sufficient to do so, we did that. And when we were looking at the last year's substantial increase in regulations on short-term lodging, one of the things we heard from toward the end there were the good operators complaining rather loudly about what the direction of the committee. And so it
Thank you for watching on.
Thank you. So yeah, I tend to agree with Mr. Blom on this one. I can't vote to extend the ad hoc as it's currently set up. If we were going to continue something like this, I'd rather see it turn into a Brown Act committee with citizen members and have have members of our good operator community involved so that they can be heard. Because one of the things that oftentimes with really good intentions, ad hocs can do is they meet behind closed doors, and so the amount of information or discussion is dictated by the decisions being made at the ad hoc level. And I'm part of those, so I know what that is, what that means. But at some point you got to sunset these things. That's the point. And so if we're going to continue down, we really should be including folks. Because one of the things we hear from at the council level, we hear from folks who are frustrated as residents being near short-term lodging, and then we hear frustrated complaints from the short-term lodging owners that they're not being heard by either the ad hoc or the council in general. So if we're gonna continue this, and I don't support doing that at this time, then it strikes me that we ought to at least turn this thing into a Brown Act committee and make sure that we've got citizen members involved, so that we're not hearing the lack of transparency concerns.
Mr.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. All right, go ahead, Diane.
You see me? We are continuing, and just as Ms. Brenner indicated a few moments ago, we thought we were going to be sunsetting this. It's been surprising, at least to the ad hoc committee, that the current ordinance is not producing the improvement in the disturbances and quality of life impacts that we thought that the ordinance would be achieving. And hence, we have to keep finding ways, as all cities are. This is not unique to the city of Newport Beach. In fact, I'm sure we all read the same newspapers and news reports, and many cities are clamping down far more than Newport Beach has even attempted to on short-term rentals. And I hesitate to even use that word. We're really trying to protect our neighborhoods and protect the good professional business managers, property managers that are working with short-term rentals. The issues, frankly, are predominantly based on Newport Island. And I have not received a single phone call or email from any other property manager from any other part of the city that has property rentals, short-term rentals in other parts of the city. So our desire to continue to address the issues of the residents in Newport Island merit the continuation of this ad hoc. And we do welcome input from anyone, and we hear, and all of you here receive letters from the residents. So we're hearing from the residents, and we certainly would welcome hearing from the property management companies. We welcome that in the form of letters or telephone calls, or participate by invitation to our ad hoc committee to further constrain the work of the committee by setting up a Brown Act committee with all the necessary encumbrances when we are certainly welcoming and transparent to the work of the committee, because all we're really doing is listening to the residents. That's what we're here to do, is listen to the residents and the business owners and giving the residents a forum through their emails. That's all it is through their same emails that all of you, all the members of the council and the city staff receive the same emails we do. So we're trying to find a way to solve this neighborhood conundrum and be protective of our existing property management companies. So we all see the same emails. There's plenty of openness and transparency. We're trying to make government work here and be responsive and to encumber it with necessary Brown Act prohibitions and restrictions is going to further delay the improvements when an ad hoc meeting in full accordance with the city attorney's guidelines and everything. We welcome any input from anyone and to staff or ourselves directly, and we respond to those. So I hope we will continue with this. I hope we'll be done with this by 6 months, June 30, year end, fiscal year end. And we want to be responsive to the residents. That's what this is all about. And I think this is what we're all on council for, is to be responsive to the residents. This has been complete turmoil. I'm sure you all saw the emails to all of us, not just to us individually. All of us received the same email, so you're all fully communicating with, and the emails are public information. And we had some incidences on Newport Island this past weekend with a commercial entity connected with YouTube and some out-of-town people. We're filming YouTube videos for commercial purposes. So these issues need to be addressed through our city processes, and that's what we're hoping to do. And I appreciate the continuation of this ad hoc because it is serving the people of Newport Beach, and our good business owners are not affected by the Newport Beach issue or Newport Island issues. So thank you.
Mr. Muldoon.
Yes, City Manager, Grace. Are these going to be publicly noticed meetings?
Are you speaking of the ad hoc committee?
Yes.
They are not.
They're not. So, is that what you're referring to, Councilman O'Neill, if I may address my colleague?
It is.
I would prefer they be publicly noticed. Aside from that, I support an ad hoc committee. I personally have taken a position of protecting the property rights of the individuals who own these homes, but I feel that those who are operating need to do so under the laws of the state and local jurisdiction. So I would entertain, if the vote's even needed, a friendly amendment that would require a public component to these hearings to support it. Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have no objection to public meetings. I've always been an advocate for transparency and listening to the public. But I did want to add that we have invited local property management companies, representatives, to come and meet with us. We've actually incorporated some of their ideas into our ordinances. And we also have, we've met a great deal with citizens. But I just want to remind people what it was like when we had the homeless task force and how much work we were not able to get done because of the amount of time that we heard people talking about the problem. And we get the problem. We understand that there are people suffering. It's not a matter of us needing to hear more about how people are being impacted by this, or even talking to the local property management companies that are doing this have been very responsible, and the local owners that have been doing this have been very responsible. So in our meetings, we're not focused on telling staff how to enforce. They're doing a good job with what they have, but what we are looking at is where perhaps our ordinances don't give them what they need in order to be able to enforce. So that's maybe the missing component right now, but I mean, I'm fine with having public meetings. I just think that we're going to get a lot less done in a short amount of time than then, and we have listened to, Noah, before you were here, we had a couple of different public hearings on this topic, and we listened to hours of testimony from people on both sides of the issue that wanted us to understand the complexity. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill,
Can I just have,
hang on just a second.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing Councilmember Dixon properly, the focus of this committee is on Newport Island going forward. If that's the case, then we just need to say so in the ad hoc documents that, you know, the renewal is to be focused on Newport Island, at which point I would support this and not ask for a, Brown Act committee, because, the concern that I have as we're moving forward are all the unintended consequences that came along with a lot of the decisions we were making last year, where we were hearing from, good operators saying that their business is being affected. It's more expensive. The regulations are higher. Again, we're trying to go after the bad operators, and we were sweeping the good ones up. But if we're talking only Newport Island, then let's just talk only Newport Island. I would understand that, support it, and if we were constricting this ad hoc to that area to figure out how to better serve those residents, by all means, let's go ahead and constrict it. And I want to ask for the I think that there should be some public component to it, but I wouldn't ask for the owner operators to be on the committee, because that wasn't the purpose of what I was trying to do. But if we're going citywide, we should. If we're not, then if we're focused on Newport Island, then let's focus on Newport Island.
Ms. Dixon.
Mayor, may I? Yes, thank you. Just again to follow up Ms. Brenner's comment, just 2 weeks ago at our last ad hoc committee meeting, we did invite by Zoom one of the property management companies to speak to us about a new technology related to audio noise impacts and decibel readings. And so we welcome any and all people who can help us solve this problem in our community. And when there is a property management company that wants to work with the city to protect his business, frankly, and to keep our neighborhoods quiet and safe, then we listen. So we are open, and we had a Zoom, and that was good input. So leave it in staff's hands to follow up. So I believe, I guess I would ask Mr. City Attorney, I guess we do have an amended motion, so I'd be comfortable with the amended motion. I think our focus right now is primarily Newport Island. If we needed to expand it, we could come back to council, but Newport Island is our target of concern. So I'm comfortable with that amended motion if we focus on Newport Island exclusively.
Yeah, okay. So, Mr. Mayor, when it comes back to council, I'll go ahead and make that motion, but we just don't have one on the floor quite yet. So
Great.
When it comes back from public comment, I'll make that motion.
Any other council members with comments? All right, now we'll go out to the public. And do we have any comments from the community room or the council room?
So do I understand that the motion on the floor is going to be concentrated on Newport Island only?
Do you mind if I respond, Mr. Mayor?
No, go right ahead.
There's no motion on the floor right now, but there will be, and that motion will be to focus on Newport Island for this ad hoc.
I might just make a note based on the ordinance that was just passed and all that. I guess the city hired somebody to make Newport Island. They have a special treatment and nightly code enforcement sweeps Thursday through Sunday. I would imagine that is resulting in some benefits, but that was part of what was added. So if that's going to be the motion, then I will defer my comments.
Mayor Avery, members of the council, my name again is Jim Mosier. As I think all of you know, I have a long-standing concern about all of the committees of this sort that meet privately. We heard everybody knows what's going on with the committee. We heard it's all by email, but we just heard it's not all by email. It's Zoom meetings. The public does not know when those Zoom meetings are happening. It might be phone calls. The public doesn't know what the committee is hearing, who it's hearing from. People don't have a chance to counter what the committee might be hearing. The public doesn't see the decision-making process at all that's going on within the committee, and none of that other than the emails would be available through a Public Records Act request. So some of you may know what's going on, the public does not. And to be clear, this is a Brown Act committee. However you appoint it, everything you appoint falls under the Brown Act. But the Brown Act gives these committees the privilege of meeting privately without a public announcement that they're meeting, provided, number one, that they're advising that they have a specific task that they're accomplishing, and that task is to come back to the council with a recommendation about something. They are advisory to the city council, and I have concern that many of these committees are actually advising the city staff how to proceed with things like enforcement, which is not a proper role for these committees at all. And I share Councilmember O'Neill's concern about the scope of what the committee is. I'm looking at the resolution. It says it's to make recommendations to the entire council regarding proposed revisions to the municipal code related to short-term lodging enforcement and regulation in the coastal zone, as well as other actions necessary to comply with the Coastal Act. When I read that before this meeting, that sounded very peculiar to me because this council has submitted a proposal to the Coastal Commission. We have not heard back what their response is. Eventually, they will either approve or modify that. At that time, you might have an ad hoc committee looking into whether we should accept that or not and make a recommendation to you. But at this time, such a broad scope has no purpose that I can think of, other than that they would be advising staff on how to negotiate with the Coastal Commission. And they should not be doing that. The advice should be coming here from the whole council, not just from 2 or 3 council members. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Phones? All right, let's get some business here. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Hi, this is Gary Cruz calling from Newport Island. So I came in late, but I did not know that this was even on the agenda or I would have been there. But I'm listening to everybody, and it seems like it's going in a good direction. I'm a little bit concerned that this ad hoc committee is going to be dissolved and the issue is not going to be brought forth to the city council, and which my understanding is as it's brought forth to the city council will then vote to make a recommendation to go to the Coastal Commission. And it's my understanding that we initially did that and the Coastal Commission kicked it back, which tells me that the ad hoc committee needs to do good work, figure out how best to approach the Coastal Commission. I'm not confident that anyone knows how to deal with Coastal Commission. So any group that can meet and say, well, this is what motivates them, these are key words. Any small group that's doing that is working for our cause. So I just as long as that's being preserved, then I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Scott Carpenter. I am the owner of iTrip Vacations in Newport Beach. I just have a couple of comments. Number one, as it relates to the transparency and openness of the ad hoc committee. As an operator who would be considered a good operator, I've been in the dark ever since the ad hoc committee has started. There's no notice of public meetings, if there are any. There are no overt efforts to reach out to the owner-operator community, if at all. So I would just say getting a response or feeling like I'm involved, it's negligible at best. I am happy to hear that we are going to maybe shift the focus onto Newport Island. To that end, one thing I would like to see the council consider is removing the last element of the emergency ordinance that prohibits short-term rental permits from being issued. COVID is declining. We're changing tiers within the county. I think it's very fair for those good operators and those good residents who have been waiting patiently to establish a good short-term rental. They should be allowed to do that now. If anything, maybe that ordinance is amended the same way this is about to be amended, and we just basically say we're not issuing any new permits on Newport Island. But to hold hostage everybody else at this particular point in time over COVID, it just seems like it's a little bit unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Bud Reevely on Newport Island. This is a real big surprise to most of us living here that the resolution is on your table today. I guess I don't really know much about it, but it appears that we want some representation if it's going to be a committee. And we'd like to have some of our members at those meetings. And I hope you'd allow that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is Nancy Scarborough. I just wanted to say that as a resident, I think that the people on Newport Island who are residents and are affected by this have carried a lot of the burden for the rest of the city. And I think that we should make this as simple as possible for them. I think that the property rights not only apply to the owners of the STLs, but they apply to the people who are their neighbors and the property owners that are being affected adversely. So whatever we can do to make this problem manageable for them and work this out legally, I think we should be making all efforts to have that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Hi, yes, this is Mike Glenn on Balboa Peninsula. Yes, I'm just calling I know that the people on Newport Island have become quite vocal. They figured out how to lobby the city, and they want government, about what they want government to do with their neighbors' property and their property rights. But if what their neighbors are doing is already illegal, then why are we not charging them with doing illegal things? Also, in regards to restricting this to being only applicable to Newport Island, I don't need to remind everybody up there that the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment ensures that the entire city will be necessarily affected from any property rights that the city council may decide to strip from property owners on Newport Island. And therefore, it's only fair to have property owners and operators on the ad hoc committee in order to better explain their position and possibly to deter their deterioration of property rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Hello, City Council. Thank you for taking my call. My name is Gina Cruz from Newport Island. I would have been there this evening with my husband if I'd known this was on the agenda, so my apologies for not being there in person. I'm a little confused by all the politics that are being discussed this evening, I will admit to that. And regarding that, I would just like the City Council members, please, to remember that it's people's lives that are being affected here. I appreciate all the help everybody's doing, but you have to realise that at this time while you're all deliberating about what to do and which committees and how it's functioning, that some people are actually prisoners in their own home because of the short-term rentals around them. And those are being permitted by the council. So the city itself is leaving people to become prisoners in their own homes because of these hotels that are being run around them. And I just think you need to know that that's the plight of some of the people. So, as I say, I appreciate all the efforts you're doing, and my apologies that I don't understand all the politics. But I just implore you to remember the people's lives that you are dealing with and the quality of life that they really are entitled to as homeowners. And some of them have been homeowners here, including my family, for over 45 years. And this quality of life has only really started to go rapidly downhill in the last 2 years. And that really coincides with the increase in permits. And again, I want to say the word permit from the City Council. So all these problems are permitted by the Council. And in that, it includes not having proper ordinances or plans in place when you increased the number of permits that you allowed to appear in a very short space of time and square mileage. So please do remember the people's lives that you're dealing with while you make all your very important decisions for us. Again, I'd like to thank you for your service and your help, and please let me know if I can be of any assistance to you.
Thank you. All right. No further phone calls. Do we have anyone else would like to come forward to speak on this? Okay. All right. Any additional council comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move staff recommendation, but I'm going to point to just 2 amendments to make sure that we're doing what we're talking about here. On page 8-4 of the staff report, in the very first whereas section, it says, whereas the ad hoc committee on short-term lodging would like to continue to further study short-term lodging issues related to enforcement and regulation in the coastal zone, I would make the modification, instead of replacing the words in the coastal zone, to on Newport Island. Similarly, in section 1 of the resolution itself, it ends by saying related to short-term lodging enforcement and regulation in the coastal zone, etc. You would replace the language that comes after and regulation with the phrase on Newport Island. So with those 2 modifications, I would move staff recommendation.
Do we have a second? Okay, seconded by Mr. Muldoon. Please vote.
May I just make a comment? May I just make a comment?
Sure.
Ms.
Ms. Dixon.
Mr. City Attorney, could you just, I say this at every meeting where short-term rentals surfaces with the assertion that it is the permit to obtain a short-term rental is a property right. Mr. City Attorney, would you please clarify the law on that?
So it's an annual permit. It is not something of the nature of a land use property right. It's just an annual permit that they have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Blum?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon? Mayor Avery?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-1.
Okay, now we have public comment on non-agenda items.
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Mayor Avery, members of the council, my name again is Jim Mosier. I have a non-agenda comment tonight regarding Newport Coast and Newport Ridge. The reason I have that comment is because you have an agenda item tonight, item 18, which will be for the first time ever asking the residents of those 2 communities to pay partially for the cost of residential trash collection. And I was wondering this morning how so momentous a decision to be made by you could be coming to you without a recommendation from the Citizens Council Newport Coast Advisory Committee, which is a committee that was created in 2001, pursuant to the terms and conditions that the people in Newport Coast apparently voted on in accepting the annexation, and included such things as the promise of free trash collection. I know that committee has not reviewed the item tonight because, unlike the committee you're talking about now, that committee has to publicly notice its meetings, and I have seen no public notice of a meeting. Yet I know the committee still exists because in January you approved appointments of council members to that committee. It's on the clerk's roster, and we've been told many times that the council does not have the power to dissolve the committee without violating the annexation agreement. So this morning I was surprised to discover that a previous council on November 12, 2008, actually adopted a resolution, number 2008-93, that dissolved the Newport Coast Advisory Committee. So it apparently has not existed for the last 13 years. And I could find nothing that had voided that resolution. So there seems to be some uncertainty about what is happening with Newport Coast, Newport Ridge, what happened when it was annexed. I would recommend to you that you ask the city attorney to review the annexation agreements and anything that the voters in Newport Coast and Newport Ridge voted on at the time of annexation, so that the city attorney can return to you with a regular agenda item, clarify for everybody in Newport Beach whether the Newport Coast Advisory Committee still exists. Did the council have the power to dissolve it in 2008 or not? And moreover, of those many promises that the people there think that they had, what is the current status of those? And does the city have any continuing obligation to them under those agreements? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Any phone calls? We have one phone call. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Hi, this is Mike Glenn on Balboa Peninsula. I'd just like to remind the public that the statement City Attorney Aaron Hart made at the request of City Councilwoman Diane Dixon, that what people do with their own property is not their right, is simply false. People have the right to do whatever they want with their own property, and declaring a right to be a permit instead does not change the fact that they have property rights that are being violated by the government. To make a comparison to automobiles, the Constitution is not an automatic document. It's a manual, and you must use it. Thank you.
Okay. No other phone calls? No other public comment on non-agenda items? All right. Anything up here?
I had one question. If I end up having more of a question on one of the consent calendar items that I've not pulled, can I still pull it at this late date, or do I need to just let it go?
You could ask at the end of the meeting for motion for reconsideration.
Okay.
All right. Now we're moving on to public hearing, and tonight's public hearing is to conduct a Proposition 218 public hearing in consideration of residential recycling fee rate increase. As a reminder, all protest votes must be submitted to the city clerk before the close of the public hearing. Mr. Webb.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members. Dave Webb, your Public Works Director. And I would just want to reframe that again, that if you have a protest vote on this item, please bring it down to the city clerk. She's right here, and we accept that vote. Yes, council, thank you very much for this item coming tonight. I have a short PowerPoint presentation for you. As we get into this, just to talk about, tonight we're going to be talking about the recycling service fee. My clicker. But what I wanted to go through real quick, because this is a long effort, one piece of a lot of effort. And as you recall, you have a council working group, which consists of Councilmember O'Neill, Brenner, and Dixon, who have been looking at this for about a year and a half on all the components of our solid waste program in the city. And we've gone through a lot of items, and I have those on the screen here just to kind of set the table. We've looked at our city contracts, our beach contracts, our facility contracts, and we've updated those. And this all originates out of a lot of state laws that are changing that is requiring us to increase the amount of recycling we have and also take on new recycling challenges like organic items. We've changed our municipal code. We've gone through our commercial franchises, if you recall. We've done outreach to schools and businesses. And the next components on this, the one item tonight, is the recycle service fee. There's a couple more we're still working on, and you'll be seeing, we've had some discussions on that. That's our residential contracts with CR&R. And also we have a Washington Street contract down on Balboa Village that we're working on. So just real quickly too, some folks have asked, so I thought I'd just make that. We talked a few meetings ago about the contract with CNR and how we're trying to reformat the two city contracts, Newport Coast and the city, into one and end up with a new contract on it. And it has some elements to that we've been talking about to meet these state mandates. We're going to combine the contracts. We're going to roll out the remainder of the recycle carts as part of that. Right now we have 31,000 so residential units, single family. There's about 7,100 carts still to be deployed. We're looking to increase the automation of that, which means we're going to look to get more of the material in the cart so we can pick it up and try to make efficiency and cost reductions on that. We're looking to consolidate bulky item pickups in a more uniform manner. We'll be rolling out that organic cart we'll talk about. We've had several discussions on this and we'll have more in the future. And then also kind of limiting the number of carts as we talk with council. Some folks have 15, 16 carts. We need to kind of get that under control. So those items are coming in the future. But tonight we really want to focus on one of the components which we've been working on, and that's the recycle service fee. And it's connected but not connected to some of the other efforts. So with that, I want to introduce Micah Martin, our Deputy Director of Municipal Operations under Public Works, and he's going to talk a little bit about this new fee increase tonight in the protest vote.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Just to jump right into our recycling service fee. So if you remember, we were back in January 26th talking about this to approve the fee study and to move forward with a public hearing. So just to briefly recap, just some of the history on this fee. It was originally implemented in 1990 under ordinance, and it was intended to recover added operational costs incurred by the city. The current recycling service fee is only $3 per residential unit per month, and it was last updated in 2009. And as you're aware, Newport Coast is currently not charged this fee, and it generates just under $1 million in revenue for us on an annual basis. So some of the things that have prompted us to revisit this fee and look at doing this update. Since 2009, when the fee was last updated, our operating costs have continued to increase over time. Currently, the city's general fund is bearing the increased program cost, and the current per month fee is not uniformly applied to Newport Coast. So state laws have continued to increase the amount of material required to be recycled and resulting in increased program cost. And the City Council Refuse Working Group has reviewed and supports staff's recommendation to update this recycling fee. So just a little bit more about the fee study itself. It was conducted in 2020, and it's focused on data from 2019 recycling. And it took into account the annual residential contract cost. There's two contracts that we are focused on with residential collection, one being the city at large contract, and then also the Newport Coast contract. It also required diversion rate for recyclable material diversion, and it focused on the number of households subject to the fee. And then finally, it took into calculation staff time related to the contract management, compliance reporting, and program administration. So this is just a quick breakdown of the fee and the study that was done and how this fee was calculated. You can see there it focused on the annual staff expense related to staff time, annual recycling contract costs, so the cost of the contract and also the amount of diversion that came out of these contracts. And then finally, the number of residential units that it's applied to. Here's just a map for reference of the two different areas. You can see the one there on the left as the blue area, that's the city at large contract. And then the smaller contract on the right is the Newport Coast contract. And this fee study resulted in a breakdown of the fee. So the current fee for the city area is $3 per residential unit per month. The proposed fee would increase this, should be $6.28 per residential unit per month. And then it would apply the fee to Newport Coast, who currently isn't paying a fee. And that fee would be proposed at $5.86 per residential unit per month. And these fees would have annual CPI increases applied moving forward. So just really quick, why we have two fees. There's been a lot of questions about why are the fees different. The city, it comes down to the two different service areas. The city contract is a larger contract area. It covers more residential units. It has more recycling material being pulled from it, and obviously the operating cost is higher. Newport Coast is a smaller service area with less participation and less recycling product being recovered from there. So that's what results in the two different fees.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. O'Neill.
So it's probably worth noting real quickly, because we've gotten a handful of questions on this one. So this is not something you will see again in terms of having two different fees that are affecting two different parts of our city, assuming that we end up agreeing to one master contract with CRNR sometime this year, which is the intention. So it's probably worth just quickly noting this has nothing to do with Newport Coast being a favored status here. It has to do with the way that Prop 218 calculates fees, and it is everything to do with the way that the contract is currently set up for that. But once we have one single contract and not two separate contracts, the next time we update our fee study for recycling under that one master contract, there will no longer be any difference between what someone is paying in one area of our city and then what someone else is paying. So it's just worth noting this is a one-time discrepancy that has to do with our our moving forward over the last couple of years into one master contract. So it's an odd thing for it to play out the way it has, but that's like I said, it's a one-timer.
Thank you for that. Okay, so finally, the proposing rate increase, if it's approved, it'll result in increased revenue of over $1.3 million. And that's in addition to what we're currently collecting. So the total estimated annual recycling fee revenue would be $2.3 million, roughly. It's almost equivalent to what our cost is. So we'd be recouping just pretty much the full amount. So just a really quick recap on the actual outreach that we've done to the public. So in accordance with the 218 hearing, we've mailed out notices. With that, we've also put information on our city website to notify the public and give them good information on the fee study. We also did a notice of hearing. It was published in the newspaper. And we also sent out interested party notification letters, and then there's been other articles and newsletters that have gone out speaking to this fee and that it would be right here tonight. So of all that outreach and correspondence, we've had about 24 residents come back to us with questions or concerns about the fee, which we've been able to address. And with that, current that I'm aware of, we had 9 letters of protest so far, unless there's been more. Okay, and lastly, our recommendation would be to conclude the public hearing and direct the city clerk to tabulate the number of protests, and if approved, implement the fee. With that, I could answer any other questions that the council may have.
Do we have any questions from council? All right. Now we'll hear from public comments. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak to this item?
And just as a brief reminder, all protest votes must be in before the close of the public hearing. So if you have your protest vote, please come over here and hand it to us. I'll give it to the city clerk.
Mayor Avery, members of the council, as I've told you before, my name is Jim Mosier, and I am one of the 9, I believe it's now probably 10. When one is so few out of so many in Newport Beach, I feel speaking to you kind of like one person standing in front of a giant locomotive of city staff railroading something towards me that I am probably powerless to stop, but I think this proposal has immense problems. Number one, I don't think the council ever had the authority to impose this fee at all. And number one, the explanation of where the fee amount is coming from makes absolutely no sense to me. As to the city's authority, we have and have had since 1959 a very clear, straightforward, voter-enacted passage in our municipal code. In 1959, it said the cost and expense of collecting, hauling away, and disposing of garbage, refuse, and other matter will be defrayed exclusively from the ad valorem tax revenues of the city. Despite that, in 1990, the city council started imposing this recycling fee, which is part of the cost and expense of disposing of that same trash. And in 1996, the council asked the voters of Newport Beach again what they wanted to do about this, and we were even more explicit. At the cost and expense of collecting, hauling away, and disposing of garbage, refuse, and cuttings, for those who receive curbside container refuse from the city shall be defrayed exclusively again from those tax revenues. But it went on to explain what those items are that the cost and expense of disposing of must be covered by the property tax. And those include garbage, which is animal and vegetable refuse incident to the preparation of handling food. It includes paper, newspaper, rag, cardboard, fiber, metal, glass, cartons, containers, boxes, bottles, jars, and other materials of a similar matter normally discarded by a household, and it includes cuttings and trimmings from trees, shrubs, plants, and grass cuttings. Those are all the things that we're being asked to help defray the cost of, and yet this says we can't. And the ordinance in 1990 said that the amount collected absolutely would not be used to defray the cost of doing those. So that is the first problem, and the second is the cost study, so-called cost study, which simply takes the total cost of removing the trash and disposing of it and multiplies it by how much we recycle. If we recycled 100%, everybody would have to pay 100% of the cost. And clearly, that's not what voters said you're allowed to do. Thank you.
If I could just briefly respond, Mr. Bush has made this statement several times that the recycling fees inappropriate. And I think it's important to note that that recycling fee was in place before the voters adopted the ordinance dealing with defraying the cost of trash. And that's been a charge that's been on the books for a very long time, and it's perfectly valid. So there's no merit to the argument that the recycling fee is not valid.
Do we have any other public comments from the community room or here? We have a phone call and got some public comment.
Hi, my name is Murphy McCann, and after reading the proposal and all the comments, thank you, Dave, it leaves a lot of questions in my mind in terms of how, what the real goal of the recycling program is. You talk about diversion rates, and I understand that that's important with regard to the state, but it's really not clear how we calculate our diversion rates and what spending more money on digging through the trash even further is even going to do for the city. It's and so in understanding the nature of what's going on, the fee is one thing. It sounds like you're trying to pass more of the cost on to residents in terms of what the city's bearing. It's not really clear how the money's being spent on the other side and whether or not that's being spent judiciously, and how our diversion rates are actually being calculated. If there's you mentioned earlier that there's a bunch of recycling containers or residents that don't even have recycling containers. If we implement more of the program along those lines, do we even have to go down the route of spending more money with CR&R to achieve higher diversion rates? Or and having to pass that on to residents. Anyways, none of that was clear to me, and I understand the that this is the big meeting, but anyways, thank you. Those are my comments and concerns and questions.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comment? All right, we have a phone call. We have 2 phone calls, all right? Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Yeah, hi, my name is Larry Robinson. I'm a homeowner on Newport Island. I've been to the city council meetings a couple of times, emailed multiple times, basically saying the same issue as far as my problems that we've been had for over years with the short-term rentals.
Yeah, this is not that agenda item.
Sorry about that. Wait, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, please mute your device and go ahead.
Oh, hi. My name is Rachel Cushman, and I am a new resident of Newport Beach, but someone who has lived within the area my whole life. I am also a representative of Miss Cuba, California, and I have done much traveling around the world about the recycling initiative, and I was so pleased to get this form in the mail, and I would like to just backpack on what the first comments of the meeting were from the girls that spoke from Newport High School, that one of the most important parts about what we're doing is education. I'm so happy that Newport Beach is implementing research, but education is what's really going to fix this problem, and all it's going to do is going to help the community grow and be more participatory, and this is really the future of where we need to be moving forward as a community to clean it up and learning how to clean it up. We live in a very different time where there's a lot more waste, there's a lot more consumerism, especially this year with everyone being at home, and especially with everybody ordering from Amazon. And I think it's extremely important that we continue with the education constantly for the public in order to really get a good grasp on this so that we won't need to be spending more money to our uneducated residents. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is that it? Okay. We'll bring it back up here. Do you have any additional comments from council?
I do.
Brenner.
I think it would be helpful, Dave, if you spoke a little bit more about what these requirements are that are making this happen. The fact that the diversion is required by the state and that we will incur serious penalties if we don't do this. And also the fact about the organic waste that is a third category that we've never had to deal with before.
Yes, be happy to. Thank you, Councilmember Brenner. Just for some general questions and some knowledge, there are questions tonight about recycling. The state laws are changing, which is raising the amount of diversion we have to pull out. And it goes from several years ago, and we still have some to go into 2020. So the recycled materials, normally you think about aluminum cans, bottles, and things like that. We need to get more of that material out of the waste stream and not put it in the landfill. And that's also changing the way we process it. So one of the things, and we've had some talks about this in the past, but currently we have CR&R who picks up all your refuge, both in the blue container and the black. That black one goes right to what they call a dirty MRF, and they try to take what they can out of it, and then everything goes to the landfill. Anything in the blue container is a lot more efficient to recycle because it's already been pre-sorted by folks, and it can go to what they call a clean MRF, and we get more material out of that, i.e. our recycle rates go up. The technology is going all towards clean MRFs. We are going to go away with the dirty MRFs. We're not going to be able to use that. So when you put stuff in your black can, all that's going to go right to the landfill now. We need to separate into different cans so that we put it into the clean MRF. And there's costs associated with that. I was thinking today when we talked about the costs, we were talking with our consultant today just to reference. If we were just taking all our material, put in the black can, taking the landfill, the average household would probably pay about $8 a month. But because there's a system in there now, because state law requires us to take it to a plant and process it, that raises the cost just up to $15 a month to try to process it. That's that recycle fee we're talking about. There's an added cost to just not dump it in the landfill. So, and that's only going to get even more stringent. And the folks have probably heard about organics. So we have the 2 carts now, the black and the blue. We're going to add a green cart, and it's required by the state. We start pulling out the organic material, and it can no longer go to the landfill. So we're going to have another stream of material we have to process. And that's the changes we're trying to deal with, and that's where the council working group's been trying to work on the new contract with CR&R to address that so we come in compliance with the state. And that starts in 2020, January 2022, we have to be doing organics.
In the past, it's sort of been on the honor system, people doing the recycling, but we're going to start incurring serious penalties if people don't do that. And some of those penalties may have to be passed on to our residents who don't want to do recycling because it's not really up to us. It's something that's required by the state. I had one other question, though, of Aaron. Aaron, give us a little bit more on why this is okay, because I still have a problem with Jim's comments and having lived here for so long and knowing what the citizens went through in these cases, I just need more assurance that this is legally allowed.
So it's actually been on the books for a long time as far as the city paying, basically the property tax paying for trash removal services. And back when the most recent ordinance was adopted by the people, there was some confusion as far as whether or not it applied to residences or applied to residences and commercial. So the voters adopted the ordinance, which basically put into place that the city would basically take care of the trash service for residential, but that it wouldn't carry over to commercial. But at the time it was adopted, we were already charging that recycling fee. That was already in place, and that's something that was being charged, and that didn't go away as a result of this ordinance. It was never intended to go away when it was adopted. So that recycling fee portion of it has always been separate to comply with those recycling requirements, and that was on the books before the voters voted, and it's been on the books after. So there's just no argument that was caught up in the adoption of the ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Dixon. Ms. Dixon, I think you're muted.
Excuse me, sorry. Just to follow on these comments, and as a member of the working group with Councilmember Brenner and Councilmember O'Neill for the last couple of years, it's just been an educational process, as one of the speakers spoke recently. And Dave, if you would be so kind to just inform all of us again of the cities in Orange County, how many cities have moved forward in implementing this the organics program that we're talking about?
So don't have an exact number. From what I understand from our consultants, most cities in Orange County, including mine in Mission Viejo, have been on this for years. We've had 3 carts and separating. We've been on it since 1990 when I moved into the city. We had a 1-cart system, then we went to a 2 because we were using the Dirty Murph and processing that way. I think Costa Mesa Sanitary is still on 2 carts, but they're quickly moving to a 3-cart system as we are. So we're basically catching up with the rest of the county in the way we recycle our material.
Yes, and so, I mean, there is a finite capacity in landfills. That's what's driving all of this, and state mandates are unavoidable. As Councilmember Brenner said, if we do not comply, there are significant fines that result to the city. So the work that's been going on to get us to this point, it's no one likes to see any kind of fee increase. It will recover a portion of the cost to the city of implementing these more expensive treatment, post-waste treatment, and that's the law, and that's what the law mandates that we do. So I think, and we need to think, though, too, for just a minor cost of half a pizza, we will bring the city of Newport Beach into compliance with modern waste handling techniques with minimum inconvenience and service to our residents. I mean, I hear from many residents saying, why don't we do more? People who move into our city are surprised that we don't do more organic waste removal. So anyway, I commend staff for working on this diligently for the last couple of years to help us get to this point, and I appreciate the support of the community in realizing that we're here to serve the better needs of our community and make sure that we handle waste in the most responsible manner possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more council comments? All right. So we'll close the public hearing, and do we have a motion?
Mayor, prior to closing, let me just double check. Are there any protest letters out there that need to be turned into the city clerk, which is me? I am here prior to us closing the public hearing, going once, going twice.
All right. So we're
Ready
for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Diane.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Oh, and let me note, I have 10 protest letters.
All right.
Councilmember Brenner?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon?
Aye.
Councilmember Blum?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon? Mayor Avery?
Aye.
With Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon voting no, the motion carries 5-1.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I make just a quick comment?
Please do.
Thanks. So one of the comments from Mr. Mosier was that the Newport Coast Advisory Committee had been deleted by a resolution. He's right, but 2 meetings later, the city council rescinded that resolution. And specifically, actually, to make sure that the Newport Coast Advisory Committee was not removed. And interestingly enough, when they were going through the obligations of the city in regards to the annexation agreement, that made sure that the Newport Coast Advisory Committee continued to be ongoing. It included property maintenance, fuel modification zones, slopes, parkways, and medians, and under the phrase refuse collection, it said not applicable. So just wanted to point out that that was a consideration back in 2008. The City Council viewed the Newport Coast Advisory Committee to not apply to discussions about refuse collection, and therefore it would have been inappropriate to bring to the Newport Coast Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're still in current business, and we're on item 19, resolution number 2021-26, a 1-year waiver of business license tax renewal for businesses required to close by order of the state of California. Does any council member have a conflict they would like to announce?
Mayor, I have a conflict due to business interests. Thanks.
All right. Mr. Blum has a conflict. All right. Do we have a staff report on this, or do we just want to?
We have a staff report if you'd like to hear it.
Yes. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Scott Catlett, your Finance Director. The item before you this evening was referred from the Council last week from Mayor Avery and Councilmember O'Neill. Staff took a look at this item, and we've put together a program that would implement a waiver on a rolling basis starting on April 1st. So that would be for a 1-year period. As businesses renew their business license, they would be eligible for this deferral. What we've done is taken a look at the state's various orders that have been put in place over the last year or so, and we've identified the businesses that we believe would be impacted based on the codes that they register with us under classifying their business. You can see in the table on the screen right now a listing of those businesses, mostly things, brick and mortar stores, child care facilities, hair salons, gyms, some of the things that you've seen in the news, businesses that have been definitely impacted. But we recognize that we may have missed some businesses, either because they're misclassified or because they might fit into a different category that still was required to close. So while all of the businesses listed here would be automatically granted the waiver, with their renewal, we would have an appeal process that would be noticed to all of the businesses in the city when they get their renewal notice, so they would have an opportunity to submit for an appeal with staff. Some statistics on our businesses. We have about 25,000 businesses licensed with the city, of which about 9,000 are commercially based. The difference between that larger group and the 1,850 that we've identified has to do with whether they could operate virtually. So you think about like a CPA firm that might be able to transition to working from home versus a hair salon that was forced to close and could not do that. So that's the criteria that we've used, but again would have flexibility for those that feel that they might be eligible. And the average tax, just to give you some context, is about $294 per year in that group of 1,850 businesses we've identified. In terms of fiscal impact, the number's about $600,000 for the impact from the ones that we've identified. We've also built in a contingency, assuming that about 10% more may come forward. And then there's a state fee required that relates to ADA access issues that was passed a few years ago, and the city would be paying that $4 fee per business to the state of California on behalf of these folks so that they don't have to pay the city the $4 still. The fiscal impact is split across 2 fiscal years. You can see the numbers there for the amounts by year, and we would propose funding that from the budget surplus that we discussed with you in the mid-year budget report. So with that, staff's recommendations are to approve the program as we've outlined it and also approve staff's payment of the $4 fee to the state of California. And we're happy to answer questions. Thank you.
So any questions of council? All right. Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Any questions from the public? Any phone calls? All right, we'll bring it back up here and for any council discussion at this point. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to say thank you to the mayor for bringing this forward and making sure that our businesses see some relief as we move forward into this coming year, and hopefully continue to see our businesses survive and hopefully in the coming year thrive as well. We've obviously seen substantial business interruption over the last year due to both the pandemic and then in particular our state's response to the pandemic. And so as we continue forward as a city, I want to also thank my council colleagues, Councilmember Dixon and Councilmember Muldoon, for serving on the business ad hoc last year to ensure that we were continuing to pay attention and find ways to make sure that the businesses that we've loved for so long would continue to be there after the pandemic and for years to come. And this is a good example of a way that the city can continue to help in both small and big ways. And so appreciate the mayor's leadership on this one. Look forward to voting for it.
Mr. Muldoon.
Yes, thank you. I definitely want to thank my colleagues as well. And, you know, it's pretty inconceivable that cities would shut down businesses and also charge those businesses the right to operate within their city, even though they weren't able to. In Newport Beach, we took an educational approach, and we worked closely with healthcare experts, our own first responders, and businesses to try to educate residents to keep businesses open. And I think this is a model that other cities can look to help businesses and hopefully get out of the way. So thank you both for putting this on the agenda, and I'm a big fan. I'd like to see more of it. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I'd like to make the motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Okay, and then I would just like to say that this city's always been committed to small businesses, and we see small businesses as so important to the fabric of our town. And I know I speak for everyone. I think all of us in the pandemic, we've gone to places and picked up takeout. We've gotten our laundry, and anytime I've come face to face with small business, particularly ones that are run by families, small organizations, I ask, how you doing? And so many times the look on their faces. I had one woman who was running a restaurant break down just because of the struggle of trying to keep her business going. And I was picking up lunch, and it was something. So it's really real out there, and I think all of us can identify with it because so many of these folks are, we're customers, but we've got a lot of friends who run businesses, and we appreciate them. And so this is just, another effort by by the city of Newport Beach to support our small businesses, as far as small as this is, but we've also worked very hard on grants and getting money from any entities we can and passing them on to businesses through an application process over this pandemic. And so it's unwavering, our support, I believe, for small businesses. And that's one of the reasons Newport Beach is a successful and a destination town. And it's a place where everybody would like to live, everybody wants to visit. And a large part of it is this very vibrant small business environment that allows businesses to thrive. And it's critical. So I think this is just another piece of it that we can offer. And I'm looking forward to voting for it. Thank you.
I just had one quick comment. May I
Yes.
make a comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want, I'm now echoing what you just said, your beautiful words, and we are a community of small businesses, and I'm sure all of us go out and always say, how are you doing? How are you doing? And I think while this may appear to be a small gesture, just imagine the thrill and the happiness, the gratitude people will feel that they're not going to get a bill from the city of Newport Beach to pay their business license tax. This is one small step to help bring some measure of satisfaction to the people as they're trying to crawl themselves out of this hole. So I'm glad this adds to the other grants that we've done and facilitated, and I look forward to getting our businesses up and running again. So thank you, Mr. O'Neill and Mayor Avery, for bringing this forward. Great idea.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second.
I have clarification on the second.
Second was Mr. Muldoon.
Councilmember Brenner?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon? Mayor Avery?
Aye.
With the recusal by Councilmember Blum, the motion carries 5-0.
All right, the last item of the evening is the coronavirus update. Ms. Leon.
Yes, should I wait just a second for
Sure.
Councilmember
Of course.
Blum to come up?
I don't know why I'm in a hurry.
All right, so we have continued good news, and I think you can see how stark it is actually if you look back from, just over a month ago to see that case rate number be at 29.4 for Orange County and come down to 3.5 here. So that's really good news, both from, the cases and just what this means for now, for our businesses and for all of us. So these latest numbers for this March 23rd, for today's date that came up with from the state, really puts us solidly in the orange tier. So that's really great news. We did enter the red tier on March 14th. Then that allowed openings, particularly for the indoor dining was pretty critical. And then with the orange tier, that will provide a greater level of opening. I think the indoor dining goes up to 50%, and some other elements there as well. As we know right now, the current metrics, the tier system requires us to be in one tier for at least 3 weeks before moving to the next. However, there's been a lot of adjustments by the governor and things, so we are being mindful. But if it does follow with that, it looks like that would put us about right at the beginning of April to get into that orange tier. So that's certainly good news. And then the other added factor is a couple weeks ago we talked about the governor added a vaccination metric for that lowest quartile, those in the highest risk zip codes, that as those areas got vaccinated, so that 2 million mark meant that the tier metrics were adjusted. And at the 4 million mark, there's another adjustment that allows cities to move into particularly the orange tier in a quicker manner. And here's the latest that is up on the state. And I know that number is a little small, but that first quartile, that quartile 1, is where we're looking for that number. It hit 2 million just over about 2 weeks ago, and now this is at 2.9 million right now. So they're on pace right now to hit that 4 million, perhaps maybe in the next week or so. So that would all be very good too. Then that would accelerate for us through the metrics, through the tier system. We, on the city side, we're moving forward too, as we're seeing what the numbers look like. All employees, most employees are back for in-person work this week. So unless there's specific issues of employees generally, everybody's back into work. We have the central library now at 50% capacity. We did open Mariners Branch open as well. That's our first branch. We'll continue as we continue to have more staffing come back in and get the training and everything going there. And on our recreation side, we continue to look at areas that we can continue to open up to. And I'll note, for example, we have the picnic shelter rentals. We're going to resume that April 3rd. Our camps for the summer are going to be opening up for registration on April 6th. So we're really moving all those areas open as quickly as we can, fitting in with all the guidelines, of course. And then happily for Oasis, that'll be a busy place once our fitness center opens up there just next week. And this was alluded to earlier, so I'm going to turn this actually over to Chief Boyles to talk about our work today and our partnership with Hogue at the vaccination site at Oasis.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Jeff Boyles, your fire chief. I'm very excited and honored to talk about our Oasis pod today that we held in partnership with Hogue Hospital. As you know, I've been coming up here every 2 weeks saying that we're trying and we're trying and we're trying. We finally found an avenue. We struck a deal with Hogue, and Hogue's pharmacy takes possession of the vaccines from the county itself, and they were willing to come over to Oasis. We did a walkthrough last week and showed them our plan and how we thought we would lay it out, and it went really well today. We scheduled 300 people, but our last count was 308, or actually 312, which means they broke open 2 additional vials because each vial holds 6, which means we went a little over, which is a really good thing. The partnership with Hogue was with our city staff, as Grace had mentioned, specifically with Laura Detweiler and her recreation senior services folks. Our firefighters, paramedics, and lifeguards were out there. Police were assisting with traffic control out in the street, so it was really kind of an all hands on deck. I want to point out that our main priority went through recreation and senior services. We focused on folks that are over the age of 65 that had difficulties with transportation, trying to get out to Anaheim or some of the super pods. Laura and her staff also had a list of people that had been calling and expressing difficulties getting it through with Othino, or getting, maybe they don't have a cell phone, they don't have email, they're just struggling with that process. So we reached out to them personally. Our Oasis vans were out picking people up from their homes and bringing them. So I know 300 is not a high count or a big number, but it was really, really an impressive number of the people that they were able to bring in. So I'm really proud of them and the work that they did. We're also able to get a handful of our city staff in under Grace's direction. We're really trying to get some of our disaster service workers, specifically the utilities workers, public works, code enforcement, people that really touch the community in an outward-facing way. So they were able to get some of those in as well, which was really important to get our some of our city staff through. Just from the fire department standpoint, I'll give you some quick numbers here. From March 21st, 2020 to March 21st, 2021, we transported 227 total COVID positive patients in the back of our ambulances. Out of that 227, 74 alone of them were just in the month of December. 61 of them were in the month of January. So you can see that really big spike there. It fell all the way to only 14 in February. And as of March 21st, we've only had 3 in the month of March. So as we see the vaccine rollouts increase and the doses, the supplies do seem to be coming into the state and hitting the county and then getting into the arms, our metrics are falling. And, you know, she just mentioned we're moving into the orange, hopefully as early as next week. And tonight marks the 1-year anniversary of Grace and I giving you weekly updates. We started on March 24th, 2020. I went back and looked at the agenda. So we've had quite the roller coaster ride. And I know Ms. Brenner spoke to it, but I just wanted to say personally, Mr. O'Neill was there volunteering today, and Ms. Brenner came as well. some of the emotions of those folks that were receiving the vaccinations today were really, really heartfelt, and it represented to a lot of them the ability to get out of their home, to rejoin society, to hug their grandkids, and just do things that they haven't done for a year. So it was really, it's been a difficult year, is an understatement to make for everyone, but I think that vaccination really represented some hope today for a lot of members of our community. So I'm just really proud of that fact and our folks. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. O'Neill.
I think Ms. Brenner was first, I think.
Oh, okay. Ms. Brenner?
I thought you were, but I will accept your gentlemanly. I just wanted to say, I was just struck by the difference between the updates that we've had for all these months now and tonight, and the just feeling of hope and optimism. It's palpable. It really is. And today was so impressive. Everybody I talked to was so grateful, Jeff, for everything that we were doing. And I meant to mention, one of my pictures that I had was of Tommy, the sommelier from Five Crowns, who I think he told me he's been there 50 years, and he got his COVID vaccination today with us, and he was so excited. He said he's ready to do another 50 years at Five Crowns. So anyway, but that was just indicative of the sentiment of so many people there, and I was so proud of the city of Newport Beach today. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yeah, it was really special today, Chief. I want to say publicly thank you to Kristen Thompson in particular. Kristen has been trying so hard to make sure that we received a vaccination clinic in the city of Newport Beach. She's been working with the county and has been all over the county helping people get vaccinated. We are still going to continue to try to work with the county in particular to hold more vaccination clinics here. We've been working with we've been trying to work with the school district as well, and trying to offer clinics for them, just specifically with the county. And so we haven't quite reached through to the county and had them say yes today, but having Hogue finally saying yes to us is a big deal, and especially a big deal because when I was talking with our residents who were coming through the line and talking, and I was able to just talk to a handful of them and ask them, why they were here instead of the super pods. There are a number of them saying they didn't want to go to the super pods. They didn't feel comfortable going to the super pods, but they felt comfortable going to Oasis, and that is a huge deal. I know, Chief, you talked to someone who had an 80-year-old man who hadn't been out of his house in a year, basically, and he came out today to get a vaccine. The fact that the city, our city staff rallied, a lot of our city staff was able to get it. I'll say, I'm going to be in one of those demographics where I think we're probably going to see a little bit more reticence among folks in their 30s. And as we are getting closer and closer to getting, as we are expanding the tiers and we're expanding the number of people who are going to have it or have the opportunity to get the vaccine, I would encourage everyone to get the vaccine. And if you think that you might be in a health situation where it doesn't make sense for you to do that, I encourage you to go to your doctors. I was able to talk with mine. I talked with doctors at Hogue Hospital. I made the call to get the vaccine. I encourage other people to do it. And so we'll continue to have those discussions and messages out there as we get to the point where people are choosing whether to get it. But we had a whole lot of people today who chose to get it, and a whole lot of people who clearly this is perhaps a life and death issue for some of them. And the fact that you were able to put that together, Chief, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We'll continue to push forward. But again, in particular to Kristen Thompson, I just want to say publicly thank you for everything that she's been doing to push this one forward.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon.
Hi, just to echo and to thank Kristen. She spoke at my town hall last Monday where she announced this and trying to get the word out. And it gives you chills to think about people who've been confined to their home for a year. And you can see it was tough going through the Athena system or what have you. And I wish I could have been there. I would have been there, but I couldn't. But I'm just so proud of our city, and Jeff and your team and Kristen have been just pushing. I do want to say my husband and I have been vaccinated. It's liberating. We're healthy. The reaction was no reaction. So it's liberating, and I just wish good health for all of our residents and to have the benefit of the latest vaccination technology in the world, and we are so pleased. So thank you, Jeff and staff, and for all of these updates. And we're finally seeing more than a little ray of light. We're seeing big light coming at the end of the tunnel. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, this all makes me just realize, this effort should have started earlier. And I know you tried like heck to get it started. And I think everybody in this council was urging, and certainly Mr. O'Neill was working hard on it. Joy was working hard, all of us. But, you just think of those folks that, and it makes total sense, right? In every community, they're just not ready to go to a big pod. And so there is a real need, was a real need, continuing to be a real need of people who, that you become homebound, and they probably were homebound before, maybe not. And it's just pretty soon people are psychologically stuck. And then, through Oasis, as only Oasis can do, to reach out, because Oasis is trusted and people come down and they've got such a supportive environment, and the sense of relief must be incredible. And on the flip side, I think of the Newport Beach Fire Department, which is built to serve. And you had your entire team ready to go, and we were available months ago, and it just would have been beautiful to have gotten it done earlier. But my hat's off entirely to you and your perseverance, and to all the connections we have with Hogue to make this happen, because it's just great for everyone. It's tremendous. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, it was finally Hogue at the end of the day. We're still trying to get the county to give us our own doses.
Right.
We'll get there.
Yes, we know there's some issues, and it's a difficult thing to do, but you got there. So if there are no more council comments, we'll go out to the public. Any public comments?
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, Jim Mosier. I don't normally comment on this, but I too wanted to thank the City of Newport Beach for providing these updates at each of your meetings openly. I think they're very useful. I've noticed a number of other Orange County cities on their agendas have kind of a standing closed session item, threat to public safety, which I think is where they hear, those councils hear what the city is doing about COVID in those closed sessions, which I think is totally not what that provision was intended for. Costa Mesa, I think, is one of those, so the public there does not hear these. They're very useful, and on a personal note, I think one of the Chief Boyle's presentations back in February, when he was talking about how difficult it was to use Athena, inspired me to look online to see any alternatives. And that Tuesday night was one when UC Irvine at the Bren Center had, you could pick any day of the week that you wanted to go in and get vaccine. So I completed my second vaccination on March 6th. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other comment, are there any phone calls? All right, any additional council comments? And we're on to motions for reconsideration.
Yes.
Madam Clerk?
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the city council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Ms. Brenner?
I don't know if it's really a motion for reconsideration or clarification, and to potentially change my vote on item 15, which was the acceptance of artwork. Do I go on?
Well, the council policy says if you made a mistake with your vote, that you can change it, as long as you do it, in a timely manner. You did raise it in a timely manner. Do you wish to change your vote?
I do. I believe I do wish. I'd really like clarification on what this means when someone makes a donation of artwork to the city and they value it and we don't value it. Does that mean that becomes a tax donation for them?
Yeah, typically if someone donates something to the city, then they are giving a tax receipt for it. I don't know exactly how they do the valuation of it, though. I think you only get the value. I'm not a tax expert, so you only get the value of what it's actually worth, and I don't know what of that you can write off.
Yeah. I read Jim Mosier's remarks that he sent to us, and the parts of the municipal code, it looks like the city does not place the valuation, but the donor does.
That's correct, Joy. So all gifts of non-cash charitable contributions, cars, and it get an outside evaluation. So this was valued, I believe, at around 10,000 or 15.
Yes.
And so to qualify for a deduction, the donor would have to go out and get someone who's in the business of appraising art to put a value on it. We have nothing to do with value. We're just a recipient organization.
So that would be a separate matter.
Okay.
And that'd be between them and the IRS.
Okay, I'm going to change my vote to no on that.
Does anyone object to that of it being recorded as a no? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? All right. Tonight we're going to adjourn in the memory of Mario Cuevas Zamora and David Stone. Councilmember Dixon? You still with
Yes,
us?
thank you, Mayor. Tonight we adjourn in honor of Mario Cuevas Zamora, who served as our region since 2015 as the Mexican Consul in Santa Ana. He passed away recently and will be greatly missed. Consul Cuevas was a respected diplomat, esteemed community leader, and devoted public servant. Before coming to Orange County, Mr. Cuevas served for 30 years in the Mexican Foreign Service. That service took him to places like Geneva, Switzerland, Montreal, Canada, and here in the U.S., he served at consulates in San Diego and New York. His focus in Santa Ana was improving the lives of Mexican nationals and those of Mexican descent. He believed strongly in the value of education and worked closely with Santa Ana College to help provide access to those in the community. He was a passionate advocate for the power of voting to affect local change. Under his leadership, the Mexican Consulate in Santa Ana developed new and innovative programs, including one that helped women victims of domestic violence establish their own businesses. And here in Newport Beach, many of us knew the Consul General because of his liaison with the annual Newport to Ensenada race. And as mayor in 2016 and 2019, certainly enjoyed meeting him again and renewing our acquaintance, and always telling him I would get to Ensenada with the race, and I have yet to do that. So I feel I never fulfilled that commitment to him. But he really cared about Newport Beach and cared about that race, and that's so important to our own community. So we extend our condolences to Consul Cuevas' family, friends, and all of his colleagues in Santa Ana and Orange County and Mexico. Thank you.
Neil?
Thank you. Dave Stone passed away peacefully at his Balboa Island home on March 10th, 2021, at the age of 88, with his loving daughter Susan and caregivers Paulina and John by his side. Dave was born in Pasadena, California on August 25th, 1932. He lived his early lives in Pasadena, frequently visiting the Balboa Peninsula and then moving there at the age of 12. He graduated from Newport Harbor High School in 1950. Following high school, Dave was drafted into the Army during the Korean War and did basic training at Fort Ord near Monterey. He married Joanne on February 4th, 1955, and while attending Cal State University Long Beach, he worked nights as a licensed captain aboard the Balboa Island ferry. Soon, Dave and Joanne started their family. Together, they welcomed with love the 3 children, Jeffrey, Susan, and Sandra. After graduating college, Dave started his long and successful real estate career initially as a real estate appraiser for the Orange County Department of Right-of-Way. He then worked as a real estate lender for Victoria Savings and Loan in Riverside, California, leading to a partnership in the development of his first apartment building in 1967. Along with 2 partners, Dave co-founded Income Property Services in Orange County, then predecessor company of Western National Properties, which he co-founded in 1981. WNP grew to be one of the largest apartment development and management companies in the nation. His passion for boating led to many wonderful years of day sailing and racing in regattas. With his son Jeff by his side, Dave had many successes on the family's Ranger 33 Puff, Islander 30 Flying Colors, and custom Brit Chance designed 3/4 ton Eclipse. Together with his crew, Dave won the Hugh Engelman Series 5 consecutive years, the Humphrey Bogart Series, and many other regattas. Over many years, Dave enjoyed his friendships and the camaraderie of yachting at Newport Harbor Yacht Club. Dave continued his passion for boating by building two power boats, Costa and Crosser, later acquiring Celaya in 2007. Dave married Sandra in 2004. Together they shared many happy years traveling the world on Crosser and Celaya, visiting more than 55 countries on 4 continents and logging more than 130,000 miles at sea, the equivalent of 5 times around the earth. He was blessed with 7 grandsons, along with 6 great-grandchildren. Throughout his business career and world travels, Dave had the opportunity to meet many interesting people. In his later years, he enjoyed sharing his travels with family and friends. Dave will be remembered for his great sense of humor, his generosity, his wisdom, and his skillfulness at defeating problems with quiet confidence. Smooth sailing Dave. Smooth sailing Dave.
We are adjourned.